Departure of the Pandavas. Namaste, and welcome to the astonishing story in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1:15 of the parting of the Pandavas from this mortal world. However, as a setting for the scene, we will read some extracts from chapter 14, in which Maharaj Yudhisthira is concerned about his brother Arjuna. We begin. Arjuna went to Dwarka to see Lord Sri Krishna and other friends, and also to learn from the Lord of his next activities. A few months passed, and Arjuna did not return. Maharaj Yudhisthira then began to observe some inauspicious omens, which were fearful in themselves. He suspected the disappearance of Lord Krishna. Otherwise, there would have been no possibility of fearful omens. He saw that the direction of eternal time had changed, and this was very fearful. There were disruptions in the seasonal regularities. The people in general had become very greedy, angry and deceitful, and he saw that they were adopting foul means of livelihood. In the course of time it came to pass that people in general became accustomed to greed, anger, pride, etc. Maharaj Yudhisthira, observing all these omens, spoke to his younger brother Bhima. I sent Arjuna to Dwarka to meet his friends and to learn from Krishna of his program of work. Since he departed, 7 months have passed, yet he has not returned. I do not know how things are going there. Is Krishna going to quit his earthly pastimes, as Narada Muni indicated? Has that time already arrived? The left side of my body, my thighs, arms and eyes, are all quivering again and again. I am having heart palpitations due to fear. All this indicates undesirable happenings. The calves do not suck the teats of the cows, nor do the cows give milk. They are standing, crying, tears in their eyes, and the bulls take no pleasure in the pasturing grounds. I think that all these earthly disturbances indicate some greater loss to the good fortune of this world. The world was fortunate to have been marked with the footprints of the lotus feet of the Lord. These signs indicate that this will no longer be. While Maharaj Yudhisthira was observing the inauspicious signs on the earth at that time, Arjuna came back from the city of Dwarka. When Arjuna bowed at his feet, the king saw that his dejection was unprecedented. His head was down, and tears glided from his lotus eyes. Maharaj Yudhisthira said, My dear brother, please tell me whether our friends and relatives and the members of the Yadu family are all passing their days in happiness. Is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who gives pleasure to the cows, the censors and the Brahmins, who is very affectionate towards his devotees, enjoying the pious assembly at Dwarkapuri, surrounded by friends? My brother Arjuna, please tell me whether your health is all right. You appear to have lost your bodily luster. Is it that you are feeling empty for all time because you have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Oh, my brother Arjuna, I can think of no other reason for your becoming so dejected. And so now we will begin hearing 35 verses from chapter 15, which concludes with a very pleasing benediction in verse 51. Due to grief, Arjuna's mouth and lotus-like heart had dried up. Therefore his body lost all lustre. Now, remembering the Supreme Lord, he could hardly utter a word in reply. With great difficulty he checked the tears of grief that smeared his eyes. He was very distressed because Lord Krishna was out of his sight, and he increasingly felt affection for him. Remembering Lord Krishna and his well-wishers, intimate familial relations, and his chariot driving, Arjuna, overwhelmed and breathing very heavily, began to speak. He said, "O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. Thus my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me. I have just lost him whose separation for a moment would render all the universes unfavourable and void, like bodies without life. Only by his merciful strength was I able to vanquish all the lusty princes assembled at the palace of King Drupad for the selection of the bridegroom. With my bow and arrow I could pierce the fish target and thereby gain the hand of Drupadi. The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of Krishna's friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Bhurishrava, Salya, Jayadratha, and Balika all directed their invincible weapons against me. But by Krishna's grace, they could not even touch a hair on my head. It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I dared engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation. O King, his jokings and frank talks were pleasing and beautifully decorated with smiles. His addresses unto me as, O son of Pritha, O friend, O son of the Kuru dynasty, and all such heartiness are now remembered by me, and thus I am overwhelmed. Generally, both of us used to live together and sleep, sit and loiter together. Even in those hours when his value was minimized, he, being the Supreme Soul, used to tolerate all those utterings of mine, excusing me exactly as a true friend excuses his true friend, or a father excuses his son. O Emperor, now I am separated from my friend and dearmost well-wisher, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore my heart appears to be void of everything. I have the very same Gandiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot drawn by the same horses, and I use them as the same Arjuna to whom all the kings offered their due respects. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them, at a moment's notice, have become null and void. It is exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes or sowing seeds on barren land. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Thus, being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. When the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, left this earthly planet in his self-same form, from that very day, Kali, who had already partially appeared, became fully manifest to create inauspicious conditions for those who are endowed with a poor fund of knowledge. Maharaj Yudhisthira was intelligent enough to understand the influence of the age of Kali, characterized by increasing avarice, falsehood, cheating, and violence throughout the capital, state, home, and among individuals. So he wisely prepared himself to leave home, and he dressed accordingly. Thereafter, in the capital of Hastinapur, he enthroned his grandson, who was trained and equally qualified as the emperor and master of all land bordered by the seas. Then he posted Vajra, the son of Aniruddha, the grandson of Lord Krishna, at Mathura as the king of Surasena. Afterwards, Maharaj Yudhisthira performed a Prajapatya sacrifice for quitting household life. Maharaj Yudhisthira at once relinquished all his garments, belt, and ornaments of the royal order, and became completely disinterested and unattached to everything. Maharaj Yudhisthira dressed himself in torn clothing, gave up eating all solid foods, voluntarily became dumb, and let his hair hang loose. All this combined to make him look like an urchin or a madman with no occupation. He did not depend on his brothers for anything, and just like a deaf man, he heard nothing. He then started towards the north, treading the path accepted by his forefathers and great men, to devote himself completely to the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he lived in that way wherever he went. The younger brothers of Maharaj Yudhisthira observed that the age of Kali had already arrived throughout the world, and that the citizens of the kingdom were already affected by irreligious practice. Therefore they decided to follow in the footsteps of their elder brother. They all had performed all the principles of religion, and as a result rightly decided that the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna are the supreme goal of all. Therefore they meditated upon his feet without interruption. Thus, by pure consciousness, due to constant devotional remembrance, they attained the spiritual sky, which is ruled over by Lord Krishna. Vidura, while on pilgrimage, left his body at Prabhasa. Because he was absorbed in the thought of Krishna, he was received by the denizens of the Pritraloka planet, where he returned to his original post. Drupadi also saw that her husbands, without caring for her, were leaving home. She knew well about Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Both she and Subhadra became absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and attained the same results as their husbands. Verse 51. The subject of the departure of the sons of Pandu for the ultimate goal of life, back to Godhead, is fully auspicious and is perfectly pure. Therefore, anyone who hears this narration with devotional faith certainly gains the devotional service of the Lord, the highest perfection in life. Namaste.